Hey, Global Voices. This is a maybe a bit long video about an important new feature on GV that is sort of in development, but we're going to start using it as we work towards the ultimate version. And so I wanted to make this video to explain it to you because I've created this guide for you, especially the audience is lingua editors who are going to be translating this stuff and managing editors and anyone working on the kind of special coverage pages. So that's mostly lingua managers and editors, but it's just really long and it's super complicated. Whoops, it's super complicated and I love you. So I wanted to make sure that this video was as clear as it could be, and then you can use the document more as a reference. Now, what are we talking about? We're talking about special categories and this temporary special category guide. Now, I'm going to go over how it works, and I'm also going to talk while I do it about how it should work in the future. So, what are we talking about? We are talking about special coverage. All right, this box here, if we get smaller, we could see special coverage. We've had it for years. Historically, it's been a bunch of pages, and so you could translate a page, and then you would get the special coverage. What's the problem? Everyone knows the problem with special coverage. Editing that page every time a new article comes out is outrageous. It's too much work. And for lingua managers, it's essentially impossible to keep it going. So how should it work instead? What if it worked like a category? Every time a new article comes out about young people protesting in Thailand, we just tick a category on there, and then we have a category screen that lists all of the articles. Sounds good, right? And then when you translate an article in Lingua, it automatically gets added to the category, like all the other categories. But what do we need? We need a bunch of content at the top, right? So here's an example with the Thailand one. We want this story. We like having stories to lead into our special coverage, but then we want it to be followed by all the articles in this nice format. And for whatever that format, if it changes in the future, we want it to look good. We don't want it to be trapped in some old format where we're just typing the things in, right? And we also want those pictures, which we didn't have in special coverage. So, all right, perfect, all done. I don't think so. Good, I wish. So the problem is that getting this to work properly is a big effort, because how do we control this text at the top of the category? Well, here's the quick answer. In this category, I went to the edit. So if I opened edit category, in this case, a special category, we'll explain that in a bit. We have the old-fashioned ones, the title, the URL, but here we go. We've got some new options, okay? We've got taxonomy, archive, header. And that's called that way because what this screen is, the screen that shows all the posts, just like a normal category screen, the taxonomy is what the category is. The categories are, the taxonomy is called category, and each item within a taxonomy is called a term. So each category is a term, and that's the generic word to describe that. So this is the archive because it lists all of them in reverse chronological order, right? And if you get to the bottom, you go to older stories. There's even more. It's an archive. So this is the taxonomy archive. And this thing at the top is the taxonomy archive header. So the new feature of GV that is live and it's useful, and I wish we had it for a long time now, it's called taxonomy archive header. And this is just a visual editor box. So we can come in here, we can edit anything we want. So we can use this for all kinds of purposes. Okay, this is only one of them. But it happens to be the one we're talking about today because what we want to do is create these sort of articles that also list all the posts. So for now, this is the core feature that we're using. All right. And then to go with it, we've also got some other settings here that affect how the category displays, like whether there's a monthly archive that displays, which we could turn off or on depending on if we think someone having a pull down menus that says posts in this topic from different months is useful or not. All right. So that's one big piece of it, and that applies no matter what. That's permanent. We'll always have that on our categories. If you have categories and you feel you need content on them that explains it at the top, you can go ahead and use that. And for example, on the Advox category on all the GV and Lingua sites, there's a little bit of text at the top. It doesn't use this system, but it will in the future. That's how we'll just put content above to explain the category. We could even put things like who the editors are for regions and things like that if we want to. Now, what else am I talking about here? Well, the thing is to have a process of using these categories as special coverage, we also need a way to translate it. Now, how are we going to translate it? When it's a category, there's no way to translate categories, especially there's no way to take this content and suck it through Lingua, because if some of you have tried taking this URL here, which is a category URL, and putting it into the Lingua editor box, doesn't work because you're putting it into a post and it's not a post. So what we need to do is have a way to have this content function as posts. Now, before I tell you how it does work, which kind of sucks, I'll tell you how it should work, how it will work, what the plan is. The plan is that there'll be a type of post that gets associated to one of these categories. So on the category screen, you'll be able to go and say, choose the post that is the term post for this term, for this category. And once you do that, you'll be able to go and edit that post in the normal way, post editor, right? Like you remember, you'll be able to translate that post in the normal way. That's really important. But when you come to the category screen, what you'll see is that post automatically inserted in here. So you'll automatically get the title of the post, you'll get the images and the content, and then below that, again, you'll come and see the list of posts. So that should be really easy. It should feel good. And then once it's set up, then if you translate that post, well, it'll automatically become the official term post for that term on the Lingua site, right? So that unlike special coverage, where there was the whole thing where it was a page and it was a pain to update and all that stuff, it'll just be a post that you translate like a normal post, and then oof, the whole thing all comes together. So that sounds good, but that's some real special stuff. I'm going to have to write some code. I'm going to have to test some code. I'm going to have to figure out the features. It's going to have to integrate with WordPress in a bunch of different little ways, like Lingua. Lingua was a system that took years to build up the code and make sure it works and has no bugs. So I want to do that properly, but we want to start using this right away because the managing editors were sick and tired of the old special coverage system with the pages, and we all were. And so what we're doing is a middle ground where we're getting a similar effect, but using simpler tools and a couple tricky hacks, and that's what this video is about. All right, we're 7 minutes in, and we already got to what the video is about. Aren't you glad? So what I'm going to show you now is the process that I'm suggesting we use and that we're going to use for the time being while we develop the bigger feature, and which is in a lot of ways reverse compatible with the new feature for once it's ready. So that's what you're going to learn about in this Google document, is how to do it with a term post draft is the key word, with a special category, and then the special category metadata, which is what we were working on here, what we were looking at in the edit category screen. So the first thing I want to just say quickly is about special categories. So over here in the sidebar, you always had categories, and that lists all the categories on the site. But now we're going to have a new one, a new taxonomy called special categories, which is a bit vague, but just roll with it. What it does is it gives a separate set of categories from the normal one. And the most important reason is there's way too many categories on GV. You know it, I know it. It's hard to search them and all that stuff. So we don't want to add to this categories that already has every country, all the languages, all the topics. So instead, we're starting a new one, and it's going to hold all the different stuff. Some of it special coverage kind of stuff. Some of it, something like RuNet Echo might go in there. Something like the bridge might go in there. Something like Summit or special topics, sort of like tags, but we're not using the tags feature of WordPress because it's too messy. So the effect is when you're editing a post now, you're going to have two boxes. One with the categories, that's the one you know and love, and then now special categories. And the special categories is going to be all weird ones. And just a tip, we have this new filter now, so you could just search. So if I want to say China, I can search for China and see China there. And in the special categories, it's the same. So if I want to say Thailand, I can type the beginning of the word and it'll limit it to just the ones I want, and I can tick that or untick it. All right, so special categories, just like categories, but special and separate. That's the most important thing. And that's where these will live in terms of where the posts are. And that's why it's under special categories is where we're going to find that. Now, what is the process to create one of these special categories with the special coverage intro post? So, as explained in the Google document, which starts off with specific step-by-step instructions for the things you need to do. So you can come and get used to which of these you need to use and come back and review the steps in case I miss anything here. But And then the second half is the explanation of the system, which is just a long text that's essentially what I've explained to you already. So you already know that second half. You can reread it if you want. The first half, I expect, is something, there's some steps here, so you might want to come back and do them again, but I'm going to go over it. So first, we start with a term post draft. And the concept here, the big view is term post draft is a never published post. It's a permanent draft. It'll always be a draft. And what it does is it stores the content that we're going to put into the edit special category screen. And the reason we do it is that, for one thing, the edit special category screen is very limited. Like, this is great, visual editor box, but there's no autosave. There's no revisions. And there's no way to stop two people from editing at once specifically. We've gotten used in GV to the WordPress feature where if someone is editing something and you come in, it warns you and says, oh, someone's already editing this. Do you want to kick them out? That stuff, none of that is here. So there's a lot of danger in using this screen too much. Whereas if we use the post, we're so comfortable with it. Everything is normal. And then we can save only the last step of pasting that content in there. So instead, we create this draft and then we work on it. So that's how the managing editors of English will work on this articles. So you can see here's the article that we saw on the category screen. It's all ready to go and in the normal format. Also in here, we have a couple other things. So that's the taxonomy archive header, right? So we'll have a heading in here under which you can store it. We also have a shortcode, okay? And what's in here is actually from the Google Doc, you'll find a link to a special template. And I just put this on GitHub here, but it's just a little bit of HTML. And what this does is it gives you the outline for one of these pages. So I will go create a new post and paste it in just so you can see how it starts off, which is as just enough content. Just enough content that when you come in here, you know what you need to do. So one, it gives you a link to the guide. So if you start there, you'll be able to get to that Google Doc easily. It gives you the short code, which I'll explain later, and then it gives you the taxonomy archive header. So that's the broad outline of a term post draft. And then once it's filled out, you could see the actual content there. So once this is ready, if you're a managing editor or someone working on a special coverage category on GV English, for the most part, you'll be creating this. If you're a translator, you'll be translating. This is what you translate. And that's the hack that we're doing here to make it so that this works in Lingua, because we can't import the category itself, but we can import a draft, it turns out. So this, what I do is if I come here and I preview, and I get to this preview URL, right, with a question mark, P equals, and the post ID, and then the preview equals true. This URL, normally we want to avoid ever sending these anywhere because normal people who aren't logged in can see them. You can only see it when you're logged in. I'm logged in right now. If I open up a private browser and try and go there, it's going to give me a 404 page, right? Not good. But here's the thing. If you go in Lingua, you can translate this. You could take this URL, you put it into a Lingua post in the Lingua box, you fetch, you'll get the content, and you'll have your own draft there. And that's like a kind of a trick, but we can use it for this. I think that was a bug originally, but it's been useful in a few different ways. So we're sticking with it. Now, that's the outline of it. So if you're a translator, what you'll do is the same as what an editor does with this content, except first you'll translate it, and then you'll come in here and you'll edit it. So you'll come in this part, the taxonomy archive header, you edit it, you translate it like normal, change all the words, get everything ready. This short code, it's a little different, which hopefully you know short codes. If not, I guess I need to make another video about short codes, but I'm not going to try and explain it all here, except to say that you wouldn't change, for example, this part of the short code, which is the name of the short code. You wouldn't change the part that says taxonomy equals GV special, which is indicating which category we're talking about. The only part you'd edit would be the excerpt, which has actual text, right? And hopefully that all makes sense. The way you would edit the information about the category will be to go to the categories screen, the special categories, and find the ones that are untranslated and translate it there, at least for now. Maybe later that'll work as part of the term post that you translate. That's automatically gets all the data. But for now, you come here. for lingua editors, there's also this new terms. This is where you come to see everything that's been added recently. So you could see some new languages we've added to the languages category. And then you could see the new special categories that we've added here. So by coming to this screen, GV new terms, you're able to see which ones are new and then check English name and local name. So if I was in French, I could look here and quickly see which of these hasn't been translated. And then once you translate it there, then on the category screen, you'll see it translated up there because that's what controls that title. Now, great. Are you not entertained? So what else can I say? What happens with this shortcode is the last thing I want to say. What happens with the shortcode is we've got it set up now in here. We've filled out the empty thing. So here it says GV special coverage term promo. That's the shortcode. And the image and the excerpt need to go in there. And that'll be up to the person creating the original one. If you're translating that, you don't have to think about it. If you're creating the original one, what you want to do is insert the medium size image, the 400 pixels wide approximately image, into that zone, which is how it is here. You can see that it's just the uploads URL. So you can embed the URL. You embed the image in this post and then grab the URL, but ideally at the 400 size because it doesn't need to be so big. And if it's extra big, all it does is take longer to download. And then the excerpt, which what you can do is use the excerpt field on your term post draft, this draft post that can be translated. You add the excerpt there and then copy it in. And the reason to do that is so that you can get this word count and make sure that it fits within the word count for your site so that it looks good when you use that shortcode. Okay, and so there you go. You have the term, which you've added here. You've added the term, which is the slug. This taxonomy is probably GV special. The image is that 400 pixels. The excerpt is the excerpt. Now you can take this and what do you do with this? Well, if you're on GV English, you don't worry about it unless you're the managing editor because only the managing editor are adding widgets. But if you are on a Lingua site, to get this effect, the thing that the shortcode is for the homepage. Because to get this box on the right, the only way is to do it manually by editing the widgets. And this is different from special coverage because special coverage would automatically show whichever of the special coverage pages had been edited most recently. But it doesn't work like that automatically, at least for now. Maybe later we're going to figure out a way to do it automatically. Ideally, I really want to offer a way to do it automatically. But for now, there's nothing that makes sense in the short term. So in the short term, what we're going to do is you're going to choose which one goes in that spot on your Lingua site. And the way you're going to do it is by going to widgets and then finding the sidebar that says featured posts sidebar. And so it's further down. And what that means is the sidebar next to the featured posts, and it's only on the homepage that it applies. And what you're going to put in there is a custom HTML widget like this. And then in there, you're just going to put the shortcode. Okay. And the reason that the shortcode exists is so that you're not sitting there trying to get the image, trying to embed the image, trying to embed the title, trying to embed the text. It's a huge pain. So instead, once the shortcode is set up, you can put it in a widget and have it automatically promoted there. And so that's it. What you do is keep track. That's why we have it set up. And then each time you have a new special coverage term that you think is like ready to go, like it's the one that has the up-to-date articles, or it's the one that's the most interesting, or the one that has the most articles on your site, you come and you put it in here. And when there's a different one that belongs, you could take this custom HTML, you could move it down here into the inactive widgets, and then replace it with a different one. So you see we've got a couple custom HTML here on the English site, and that's because there's different ones that, I'm on the live site, there's different ones that you could switch between, so that if one story sort of wanes and another one is ascendant, you could switch it back and forth without having to redo everything. And most importantly, even if you come into this widget and just change the shortcode entirely, just completely replace it with a different one and save, well, you always have a backup. You're never doing it from scratch because you're keeping the term post draft as the canonical location for all this information, which also applies to the category screen, where what we're going to do with this other part is the taxonomy archive header, we would come to text. We find the heading for taxonomy archive header, which is here. And then we take everything below, which is the actual content, take the in text form, we take the HTML, we come to the edit special category, we go text, and then we put that all in there, right? And so that's what you would do if you're a managing editor on English who's updating one of these pages. You don't update it on the category screen. You update it in the term post draft, and then you copy it over. And if you're a lingua manager, what you do is you take that text, and once it's translated, you copy it over. And then there you go. You've got the lovely special category, special coverage category. We're figuring out what to call it. But there you go. This system can be used for any kind of category that you want to have special content. I don't know what you're up to, but we should be open-minded about it and make the most use of it possible to have those category screens be useful when there's something that people should read before they see the titles and the posts and stuff. So there you go. I might cut in here and add some more stuff if I forget something. All right, I must be psychic because I did remember something that I forgot to mention in the video, which is how lingua translation managers will get the preview URLs of special category term post drafts in order to translate them. So, right, the way we're going to translate these is we take the draft post on English, you're going to import that and fetch it into Lingua, and then you'll have the draft post, and the Lingua Translation Manager can take the content of the draft post and paste it into the category settings. But how do you get the preview URL? You have no access to that. The answer is we're going to send it to you. We're going to have, when there's a new page ready, we are going to send a post to the Lingua Translators mailing list. That's probably how we'll do it. And it'll be like, hey, there's a new one. Here you go. Here's the page. And then maybe go translate a couple posts, like make sure there's some posts that'll be on that category screen before you bother with doing the whole taxonomy archive header content and all that. But there you go. We're going to send out the preview URLs. And in the long run, eventually in the final system where there's just this magical term post that you can translate, you'll just see that on the GV site. You can take the URL, put it in Lingua, and it'll suck it in as if it was sucking in the category, as if you were translating the category. And that should all just work like pretty magically. For now, it's not magic. We're going to do it manually. We're going to send it to you. Thank you. Okay, well, with all those lovely updates that I did or did not insert, I appreciate very much that you read, that you sat through this long video. I hope it's helpful. And I hope that this temporary special category guide, which will be linked in the description of the video, is also really helpful to you. You can let me know on GV Slack if you have any questions, or I think you should be able to just comment on this guide and leave your questions there. I appreciate you very much. I love the work you do on GV. Yes, you, whoever watched to the end of this video. And I look forward to sharing more updates about the progress of these features with you as the system gets better and better and less awkward. But hopefully this is useful enough. Anyway, appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon.